Well, Kevin, good to talk to you again. It's been a while here. Let's catch up a little bit. There's been a lot that's happened since the last time we spoke. I know the markets have really been on a tear for a long, long time now, and just seems like there's no end in sight here. We've had a few blips up and down lately, but it's still holding in there pretty strong. Do you mind just giving us a little bit of a summary of kind of where we're at now in the markets for some of the major commodity crops?
Yeah, I mean, winter wheat's getting close to getting cut, as we hit our wheat harvest pretty soon, and wheat prices are screaming. We had, prices obviously respond to the outbreak of war in Eastern Europe. That shows no end in sight, and the issues that we highlighted 2 months ago are still firmly in place. So we definitely look for wheat values to stay at record highs, if not continue to push higher. And, there's hints of problems in the Southwest Plains around the crop. But it's spring, going to be summer. It's stormy weather season, and there's hail happening out there. I see hail alerts pretty much every day. And Eric, you're in crop insurance, and I'm a wheat grower that's got $11 wheat sitting out there looking nice and plump with big heads. What do I need to think about here?
Well, I mean, you basically hit the nail on the head there. You really need to be thinking about hail coverage. I think what we're going to see this year and what we're already seeing in some areas is those producers that have some wheat out there, especially if it's in good condition. It doesn't have to be great condition, but if it's in good condition where there's some meat on the bone, there's something worth protecting. We're seeing some hail sales. Certainly there's places where people actually have some very good wheat where they've got the right precipitation, the right weather for it. Obviously, with these kind of prices, pretty unforeseen in some respects. A little bit of hail goes a long way as far as hail coverage goes. And I always try to look at, as a risk consultant, what can go wrong, and is there anything I can do to protect against that risk? And right now, the closer and closer we get to harvest on wheat, I just think about hail and the risk out there.
Right.
I know a while back, it's probably been several weeks ago now, Kevin, but you were talking about the effects of La Nina and how that's kind of lingering on. Certainly, you said that in some areas of the U.S., it's going to call for some kind of extremes in the weather, and I think we've seen that in a broad part of the U.S. I mean, you look at that drought monitor, and it's kind of the haves and the have-nots for moisture, right? The Western doesn't have it. The Eastern wishes the spigot would shut off so they can get some crop planted. So certainly we need to look at some hail coverage. The other thing that I think will, could take people by surprise is that, hail coverage in a lot of areas where wheat's grown isn't that expensive for what you get for coverage. You might be like a, 1, 2, 3% type rate, definitely worth looking into. The other thing I'd say is to make sure that you look at what your multi-peril coverage is, make sure you're properly covering the value of that crop.
Yeah. And I think, Eric, you mentioned that, the haves and have not this weather season. And I think what that's setting up is this kind of battleground at the in-between places, which is kind of, Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, where we're seeing hail outbreaks that are pretty sizable because of that confluence of dry and wet and cold air that's all coming to head kind of at that epicenter there. And so we are seeing regular outbreaks of hail. And you're right, the La Nina is fading, but that just means more of this back and forth weather pattern. It can't decide. It's a little bipolar right now. It can't decide whether it wants to stay La Nina or drift out of the sunset a little more neutral. And so it's going to be a lot of back and forth, I think, over the next couple months, which is important for winter wheat guys. You got $11 wheat sitting out there. That hail damage, if it hits, can be so detrimental when you have prices as high as they are right now.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I've seen so many times when farmers might be out there putting up storage for a big crop that's on the way, or maybe even buying some new harvesting equipment, only to have those plans change or their perspective change when a big hailstorm comes along. So it's definitely important to think about. The other thing I'll say is, a lot of our customers, a lot of farmers we've talked to have kind of punted this year on the hail conversation. And I think the reason they have is because they knew that the markets were on a tear at the time we were making crop insurance decisions on the multi-peril. and that multi-peril was not cheap this year. Probably a good value because of the guarantees out there, but still expensive. And so, you know, I know we talked to a lot of farmers that were having a hard time making decisions on hail. And we said, you know, you have the luxury of waiting until there's risk. And so we certainly don't want to go out there with, you know, a crop that's peaking up above the ground for the growing point and introducing risk in it without having hail coverage. But, you know, a lot of people are still struggling with planting, but I think some areas are starting to dry up a little bit. We're seeing some more acres getting planted of particularly corn and beans. And I think when they do, they need to make sure they don't forget about that hail because a lot of those conversations, it's been weeks now since they've been had with their agent. So.
Right. Yeah, I know farmers are looking at their budgets going, man, fertilizer's through the roof and where do I save money? But maybe this year it's not the year on insurance.
Well, that's right. And that money has already been spent, right? All those input costs. And so to your point, Kevin, you know, the way we look at it is we're not trying to add to the cost, but we are trying to cover the cost. And I think that's really important because there's just a lot more to gain this year and there's a lot more to lose.
Yeah, absolutely. So good times and a lot of uncertainty ahead. But you know, I think this is a great time to be in agriculture, and you know, hopefully farmers will have a good growing season, and insurance is probably a big component of what they need to have in their arsenal.
You bet. That's all very important this year. There's a lot riding on things, no doubt. So appreciate it, Kevin. Thanks for the update.
Thanks, Eric.